and I'm here with a team to describe a solution that will help banks to solve one of their problems. A problem which is about low usage or low rate of usage for credit and debit card at the point of sales. Now, why this problem? The core of this problem is that the end user or customer user end up with many accounts from different banks, like loans, bills, salaries. So, and the user end up like confused on how to manage all those accounts. So they switched back to cash. So they prefer to use cash in order to have visibility of their financial. The solution is Expincers. Expincers is a smartphone application that goes connect to the bank portals, get the user information, transactions, gather them in a way to show a single view for the user where he can see, or they can see his current balance, income, monthly expenses, and weekly expenses, along with different list of transactions, his transactions categorized, and it shows the user in an easy way, simple way, how and where he is spending his money.
And here are some screenshots of the initial design of the application. And basically, we do have a working prototype. So these are the previews. Basically, this is the security pin code. It will have a security pin code. It will not be updated as a data on a server. It will be inside the phone with the information protected with a pin code. We do have other security measures for it not to be hacked or used by someone else. Basically, we do have bank selections. Actually, after you enter the PIN code for the first time, you do have different bank accounts. If you want to add the bank account with different banks, and since each and every bank has his own, possibly, if you can say, method of using mobile banking, so we have different options. We can use we can see the transaction activities. Basically, every time we do use any of these cards that are connected to this mobile application, we do have a list of transactions that we can use. Then we do have the multiple account overview. If you want to check all your accounts, for example, at the same time, you don't have to call this bank or to check this website or to call. You do have this overview about all your accounts, which makes you avoid a lot of hassle. The expenses overview are basically categorized and subcategorized, and you can see how you spent your money in order possibly to watch yourself the next month, for example. We do have expenses pie charts, which is generated by the expenses, and of course it is also categorized. Shadi, would you like to talk about the market industry?
Okay. It's now time to go into this. In fact, in Europe and the States, there is 40% among the online users. Online users are around 40% of people using mobile banking through smartphone. And in Lebanon, we put together some quick statistics. We found that in Lebanon there are 230,000 online banking users for the top 10 banks, and yet they are using the credit card only 22% on point of sale. So there are still so in this case, if the application is able to help the user to use more the credit and debit card, which is mean more income for the bank.
Exactly. So this is it. Thank you.
So technically, for this to work, you need to be spending everything via your credit card, right?
Exactly.
And you're accessing confidential bank information. What is the feasibility for both?
Yes, in fact, between spending, yes, in fact, the target is to promote the user to use the credit and debit card. Why? Because this is what interests the bank, because it will make lower cost of transaction, and yet there are commissions from using credit and debit card. Now, there are a plan to attract more users is that we have a feature where they can use the same application, they can enter the transaction manually. But once they realize that, hey, if you spend the credit and debit card, it will be easier. We don't have to go again and every time key the transactions. Now, technical-wise, which is security-wise, Security, the application does not use, or it was designed not to use, or the concept is not to use any intermediary server. It's like direct connection between the application and the bank portal using the same security schema used by the bank when you log in online. That's in terms of communication between the user and the bank, which is usually a secure channel. Now there are other methods of invested I can describe them. Other
Selling this to banks or consumers? Who's your audience?
Okay. The audience is that we promote it more to the bank, to the users, because at the end of the day, our customer is the bank. We are going to sell this to the bank on a basis, at least from how we see it, as a basis of initial setup fees, then on a recurring base based on the number of users that they are using the application. Okay, so it's like one time setup fee to set up the bank, include the bank in the application, and then on the basis of how many users they use the application. So it's like recurring revenue, recurring fee on every user using the application.
It's like customers are charged, for example, $1 SMS. It's the same, let's say, type of revenue. They are charged whatever the bank decide to charge them on a monthly basis. So it's a service that the bank will offer to its customers.
So you said the banks?
Yeah, the buyer is the bank, but the end user is the customers.
Could you clarify a bit more how this will allow the banks to increase the penetration of credit card usage?
Yeah. In fact, one of the problems we found in using credit card and debit card is that many users they don't have like to have visibility on their financials. So while talking with people, you find many people they go at the beginning of the month, and mainly because the high number of credit card penetration in the market is from the salary domiciliation. So they take his own debit card, put it in the ATM and put the money back. So it's like not using the application. Now if we are able to provide the user with a solution that shows him always in control on his financials and show him the statement directly whenever he wants on his smartphone or on his iPhone, so the user will feel more comfortable to spend on debit and credit card, and of course many people will go and
I think the most powerful thing that you talked about in your application is how you divide the consumption that you're doing. Would there be, from the POS side, data collected so that you can do it, or the consumer has to input every consumption he does and qualifies it as personal or work-related or whatever?
It's a good question. In fact, that's a good question. We try to solve at the beginning of the application, and when we start designing the application, and that's why we created it. In fact, one of the challenges we have is that we don't want to connect to external server to get some kind of categorization, because we need to solve a problem of security. We don't want to have external connection. So what's happening right now is that our target is we load the application with initial data, which is learning data, something related to machine learning, and then let's say the user finds that a transaction is categorized in the wrong way or in a different way. So he can choose a transaction and specify the category he wants. And then every transaction, every future transaction will be matched. It doesn't need to be the same wording, but if it finds there is a close proximity that this is the same transaction, it will say, okay, this transaction is, let's say, related to health.
There's really a big issue here, it's credibility. You know, if you're accessing banks' data, it's the bank's credibility on stake. And if your application does something wrong, and it's the bank's reputation at stake. So will the bank really sponsor this application and let you access this confidential information?
Usually it's like not us accessing the application. It's like you have the application and exactly the same way the user do it. Let's say previously the user will open his laptop or desktop, go log into the bank, enter username, password, and through the online banking he can check his account.
Yes, but I'm accessing via Internet Explorer or Safari. That's credible interface.
Exactly the same. But now you will have something which is the only issue I see in this case is that you need to make sure the application or whoever wrote the application isn't going and sending the data in a different way somewhere else, or stealing the data or something like this. And this is requires really certification. Usually you cannot steal because the application is done, at least the initial page is done like read only and no no operation, at least yeah, no transaction. But if in the future you want going to enhance it or extend it, I'm sure that there are some phases to follow, and mainly moving between the same accounts, moving money between same accounts.
Thank you.
Actually, data aggregation is simple, but data segregation and compiling will have to do with personal learning by the user, not anybody else, right? Because you cannot access data. That's banking secrets. We have considered this.
Yeah, this is why, exactly, and this is why we did not even took any information about this data or process it in some place else. So we tried in our algorithm to do some things that we learn from the user. The user will match the first time and say, okay, you know what, this medical is a fuel, and then next time, or this pharmacy XYZ is health. So next time the system will find, okay, I have pharmacy, but ABC, so this most likely is a health. So it will try to learn.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay.